guys, welcome to Bar Z. My name's Stan, and today we're going to do some stuff for the do-it-yourself guys. There's not a really good wiring diagram out there for it yet, but it's dead simple, and I've got it all in my head. That's how easy it is. If I can remember it, you can. I've got some components drawn on the board. We're going to go around first and talk about all the components, talk about their physical location, and then we're going to come back and wire them all up. So, and I've got a few of the parts here that I can show you, and all the components here are on your cheat sheet. Okay, first of all, let's talk about SSRs. This is a little SSR that I use. This is just a single pole SSR, so one line in, one line out, and then a control. So 4 terminals. It's got a metal back. I don't know if that's stainless or not, but it does have some kind of steel back. And this needs to be put down on a heat sink using either thermal paste or the double stick thermal tape. This mounts in the bottom of your control enclosure. All right, so that's the SSR. And your heat sink just gets mounted to the back as so and bolted down. Okay. Next up is what I'm calling it. It's a porcelain terminal block, and this is made by Wico, and these are really high quality terminal blocks. This is where you bring your element into into the connection right here. So you bring this in as a connection, and then one side you actually bring the neutral line right into this other side, directly to this, and then you distribute a little bit of power out of here to go out to your controller and other things. And then you got your hot side and your neutral side. But this is a very high temperature block. But this is what you bring your wiring into to head off into the actual heating element. This bolts to the bottom of the control enclosure. Next up is a Novus 480D. These are the controllers I've been using, and I recommend you can run any controller you want. If you do, you need to check with your paperwork. But there's a wiring diagram on the side, and we're going to be wiring this example to this diagram. Okay, so that's a temperature controller. It goes in the face of your control box. Next up is a small thermal switch. All this does is control the fan. There's 2 different types available. This is a fixed value. This one will kick on at 110 degrees, so it closes on rise. That's important. The switch closes on rise and opens when the temperature drops. So, and this has got a 20-degree deadband. So, but it actuates at 110 degrees. There's another type on the Amazon list that has an actual dial where you can adjust it. So either one will work just fine. All right, that's a little snap switch. Location is directly on the side of the oven within the control enclosure. But I put a little bit of thermal paste right on this right here, and just put it right down to the oven side plate, and put a couple screws in it, and make sure that heat transfers into this switch, so we get a good actuation. So that's your thermal switch. Alarm horns. This is an 80 decibel horn with an LED light, and it's 110 volt. So 2 terminals on the back. Pretty simple. Fits in a 22 millimeter hole, I'm sorry, and just goes right in the front of your control enclosure. Fuse. This is a secondary type fuse. This is for control only. The other large fuse for the element is a separate unit. It's actually a circuit breaker. So we're going to show you where this goes. Here's a box that's already started. You can see our fan is in the back. This is what yours should look like. It hangs out the back with the hardware supplied with the fan. You get a circuit breaker right there, and that just gives you a place to reset from the bottom. And physical location over here for your SSR. So your cooling fins are going to be sitting facing down, and this one little hole right here is for your terminal block. As so, you've got your power cords, your main power that comes in that big bushing, and then the little hole is for a small bushing to run the power out to the cooling fan. Okay, so we're done talking about all the physical locations of all this stuff. Let's wire it up. Okay, so we've got all our components on the board. You've already seen what they look like in real life, and I've already explained to you where everything goes. First thing we're going to do is we're going to put neutral to everything that needs neutral. We've got a neutral and a line 1 coming in. This is your incoming power or your power cord. The first thing I'm going to hit is the terminal block, which is this. This is representing, and that goes off to your element. So we're going to hit this with neutral first and foremost, and we're going to bring, basically within the unit, we're going to take the power cord neutral straight to that terminal block. All right. Out of there, we're going to distribute neutral and backfeed it out and take it back out to everything else that needs neutral, which includes your fan, your alarm, and your Novus temperature controller. So this right here represents that, the Novus. All right, so we've got neutral to everything that needs neutral. Next up, we're going to take power. And I'm going to use the colors that I actually use within the unit. So we bring incoming power in. I do that in black. That's black on the power cord. We hit that circuit breaker first thing. That's a 20 amp circuit breaker that I showed you earlier. And then we come out of there. We go to the SSR. Out of the SSR. Right into our terminal block. Okay. From there, we're going to be using, if you want a representation, there's the SSR right there with the L1 and the T1 connections. They're actually upside down like that. Okay. All right. Next up, we're going to come out in this connector where you make this first initial connection into this main circuit breaker, the 20 amp circuit breaker. You're going to go ahead and drop in this little fuse right here and branch out of that. So you're going to make a connection within that terminal, come out and hit that 10 amp breaker. All right. Out of that 10 amp breaker, that's your control fuse. That's just to protect the alarm, the fan, and the Novus. So you're going to come out of there. Very next thing you hit is a thermostatic switch. That's that little thermostatic switch that I showed you earlier. Okay. So out of there, we come out of that thermostat switch, we come out and we go up and we hit the other side of the fan. So at that point, that fan can run no matter what the rest of the oven's doing. That fan is capable of running and protecting the oven. Out of this connection, you make a double connection here, and you come out and you go up to a control switch, which is in the cover of your Hotshot, which is just a single pole, single throw switch. From there, you come out of there, go to terminal 1 on your Novus. As soon as you hit that control switch, Novus boots up. You need to make a small jumper out of that switch. Come on up to terminal number 5. This is your switch gear within the Novus. Out of 6, we come back and we're going to come down to an alarm. So what that does is when the Novus calls for it, it can trigger that alarm. There's switch gear inside that you program, and if the Novus goes into alarm, it's going to sound your alarm horn. And I've got one, I think I showed it to you earlier. But it's one of these little fellas right here. That's your alarm horn. Okay, so that's going to light up a light and set off a horn. Okay, so that takes care of all your basically all your high voltage, 110 volt power wiring. Everything else is control voltage. We need to hook up this thermostat within the unit. There's a small thermostatic probe that's on your list. And make sure you use type K thermocouple wire. It's color coded yellow and red. So we're going to code those in yellow and red. And red is negative, by the way, on that stuff. So keep that in mind. It's real easy to get those switched up. Okay, so we've got temperature sensing. We've got alarm. We've got power. All we need to do now is get this SSR working and get us a pulse output. Now I run this in a belting cable. This is a low voltage DC, but I do run it between the Novus and the SSR through what I call a heat enable switch. So you can get this temperature controller up and running without triggering the SSR. Make sure your Novus is behaving properly, hit the heat enable, and then fire your SSR. So we got positive that comes down through this heat enable switch and then comes down to the SSR, and then negative, we just bring it out and come straight down, straight to the SSR. And you can use a 2-conductor belting cable for that. Very low voltage, very low amperage. Okay. We can talk about elements while we're here. This is a drawing for a 110 volt, 2000 watt unit. Your target resistance on your heating element is 7 ohms. Anywhere between 7 and 8 ohms is going to work fine. It's, you know, you're going to get good heating capacity there. If you're sitting about 8 ohms, you're probably at about 1800 watts right in there somewhere. Okay. But that is the wiring diagram for my standard version Hotshot. Now, if you are using some other type of controller other than a Novus, your terminal numbers are going to be different, and you need to refer to the paperwork that comes with your controller, because all this is going to change in this area. But this gives you a real good idea of how to wire your do-it-yourself ovens. If you got any more questions, feel free to shoot me an email. I'll try to answer them for you. But this is pretty intuitive. It's a pretty simple wiring diagram, and I just keep it in my head. It's just dead simple. But I appreciate everyone that's watched, and I appreciate everyone that's supported the channel with the do-it-yourself kits. And I had a few emails of people that wanted to know how I wire them. So that's how I wire them. All right. I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you on the next one.